What's going on, everyone? So buying a home is an important decision. There are a lot of things that you'll want to make sure you don't overlook because you want to make a smart choice because purchasing a home is a huge investment, right? So you want to make sure that you have zero regrets when you close on that property and move in. In this video, I'm going to share some things that you'll want to make sure that you do not overlook when you purchase your next home. My name is Stephen Kodabash, and I'm a realtor located in the northern Atlanta area, and I get to help people buy and sell houses every day. When you're making the decision to purchase a home, make sure that you do a lot of homework and make sure that you ask as many questions as possible so that you make a great decision. One thing you're going to want to make sure that you don't overlook when you buy a property is consider future development. So I like to look on Google Earth. I like to take a look at where the home is located and look around it. Look all around it and ask yourself some questions and ask others some questions. You know, your realtor is a great person to lean on for this type of homework. But what things could potentially be developed near the home? The home might be near a highway, right? Maybe it's right now, maybe it's just a two-lane highway and that's it. Well, is there a potential for it to expand to a four-lane highway? I know here in Canton, Georgia, where I live, there's expansion right now going out on Georgia Highway 20. And it was a two-lane highway. Now it's going to be expanded to four in certain sections. And there are homes that unfortunately, they have parts of their front yard now that they had to give up, right? They had to sell that part of their property to make room for the highway. So make sure you ask, and I know that it's kind of tough to find out all of the details of future plans, and of course you can't project 10 years out, but ask as many questions as possible about future development because it can impact the resale of your property down the road. Hey, do me a favor before we go further, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button for me. Thanks. When you're thinking of jumping into the home purchasing game, make sure that you get pre-approved before you even start looking at houses. There's a big difference now between just getting pre-qualified, which is a very, very preliminary step, and then getting pre-approved, which is the next step. So make sure that you get pre-approved before you start house hunting because it makes you understand what you can afford, right? It helps you understand the price range of homes that you can afford. So that way you're not A, wasting your time, and B, you're not going to get your hopes up because you could start looking online and find a house that you've fallen in love with, but you could later realize that, hey, it's 15 or 20% above your budget. Another thing you could regret is skipping the final walkthrough. In most cases, you as a buyer, you are allowed a final walkthrough. So right before closing, and most of the time it's just a few hours before closing, you can go through the property one last time to make sure that everything looks great. For example, you probably had some sellers that were moving out of the home. Well, what happens if they were moving out and they knock a couple of holes in the wall? And you, as the buyer, you have an opportunity to walk through to make sure things look okay. If you see big holes in the wall and things like that, then you can raise that concern to the sellers and you can get it corrected before you go and close on the property. So do not skip out on that final walkthrough. When you are looking for that next property, make sure that you account for commute time. And so no, I'm not talking about a time of the day, say on a Sunday afternoon when there aren't a lot of people on the road and traffic is really light. I'm talking about during rush hour when you're going to be driving to work. There are so many apps and maps online that are super smart today that allow you to plug in a certain time. So you can plug in a certain time range to go from point A to point B, and it will give you an idea of the commute time. So you'll regret it later if you buy a house and the commute is a lot longer than you thought, because who wants to be miserable sitting around in their car for hours every week? Another regret you'll want to avoid is not saving enough money. Make sure that you put down enough money for a down payment on the home because that way it lowers your monthly payment as much as possible. And typically, if you can put down at least 20%, then you avoid PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And that saves you even more money off of your monthly payment each month. So not only is there a concern of not putting down enough money, but there's also something that you could run into where you don't have enough money or cash on hand to do the things you want to do when you move in. Some people move in and they want to buy new furniture, or they want to buy a new appliances and things like that for the home. So make sure that you've got enough money on hand for your down payment and then to spend on the home once you do move in, so that you don't have any regrets. As a home buyer, another regret that you could run into is not buying the right size home. So I completely understand we all go through different seasons in life. So think about where you're at today, and then you got to think about, how long do I potentially want to stay in this house? So if you think you might only stay in the house a year or 2 years, then you don't really have to project out and guess as far out, right, regarding your family life and living situation. But if you're thinking that you might be in the home for, let's call it 5, 10 years, so longer term, think through, hey, is my family going to expand? Maybe we'll have a child come into the picture. Maybe you'll have a relative come into the picture and live with you down the road. So if any of these are possibilities, think through the size of your home. So don't buy a house and then a couple months later you live in it and you think, you know, this was the wrong size house. We need some more space. So really think through where you're at today and where you're going to be at down the road, and also factor in how long you think you'll be into the home, how long you'll be living in the home. I know it's a tough balancing act and we don't have a crystal ball, but just factor that into the equation so you don't regret the size of your house after you close on it. Hey, before you hop off my channel, I've got the perfect video for you to watch next. Check this one out. I've published a video here on my channel where I talk about your mortgage loan, right? You've got to apply for a loan to close on this property. What happens if your loan gets denied during underwriting? So say you're at the very end and you're about to close and things fall apart. What are your options and what can you do to save the deal? In that video, I give you some tips. So check that one out next. When you are buying a home, I completely get it. There are a lot of things that you've got to consider. It could feel overwhelming, but make sure that you do your homework well, because big picture wise, when you think about it, you know, your home is your largest asset. Typically, it's the largest asset that we own. So you want to make sure that you make a good decision when you buy that home and you don't have any more or don't have any regrets down the road. So I hope you learned a little bit in this video, and I hope that it helps you out so that you make a good decision on your next home purchase. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next video.